So obviously from time to time we need to lose weight, whether it's for aesthetic reasons or whether we're trying to get into a weight division for our sports or whatever it may be, right? But it's important to try and hold on to as much muscle mass as possible while we're trying to lose weight. Otherwise, really there's no point, you're chasing your own tail. There's no point losing weight and losing a whole bunch of muscle mass as well to go along with it. So here are some tips you can use to make sure that your weight loss goes as planned and you maximize the amount of muscle retention, and even possibly if you're more of a beginner, you can actually continue to gain some muscle whilst in a calorie deficit, even though it's not something very easy to do, and certainly not something very easy or arguably even desirable to do if you're somebody who's more of an intermediate or advanced level lifter. But certainly, as any level of a lifter you may be, or an athlete you may be, or somebody who just trains even recreationally you may be, you want to hold on to as much muscle as possible when trying to be in a calorie deficit, when trying to lose weight. So here are some quick tips, some simple tips that you can use to retain as much muscle mass as possible. First of all, make sure your sleep doesn't get disturbed. Make sure you get good sleep. Get plenty of sleep, minimum 7 hours. Has been shown again and again to be that sort of minimum cutoff necessary to not only live a good, healthy life, trying to avoid particular diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and a whole list of things. But also sleep is just, obviously, as we know, but ironically we don't follow through with enough, is important for the recovery processes that happen within the body. After a big day, all the repair functions that we absolutely vitally need happen with sleep, within sleep. And not just the length of sleep, but also the quality of sleep is very important. So make sure your sleep is good. That's first of all. Second of all, make sure your calories aren't cut too low. If you're losing weight too fast, you are at a much more elevated risk of losing muscle tissue to go along with your fat loss. So make sure your calories aren't too low. How low should they be? On average, you don't want to be losing any more than about 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. Again, if you're somebody who's more of a beginner or somebody who is starting out at a much more obese level, obviously that's going to be accelerated. But for the majority of people watching this, for somebody like me, for example, any faster than 0.5 to 1% of body weight loss per week is, you want to be falling within that range. Any more than 1% per week is probably questionable. You need to really have a good reason as to why you want to lose weight faster than that. So calorie restriction and making sure not to restrict calories too drastically. That's the second point. Third point is make sure you are keeping up and in fact increasing your amount of protein intake. On a calorie surplus or even calorie maintenance, the amount of protein you need is not going to be as much because you're getting lots of calories in anyway, and that by itself has pretty strong muscle sparing effects. You have energy to do things, and you have energy and calories required to keep up with the body's maintenance, repair, and build. Make sure you increase your protein during a deficit. How much? Typically, you want to be falling between 2.2 to 2.4 grams per kilo of your body weight during a caloric deficit to ensure that you are holding onto muscle, or even if possible, building some muscle whilst you're doing your training. The fourth and probably a very overlooked thing and a very important thing is you gotta continue to train. I'm not talking about jogging, I'm talking about weight training, resistance training. You must do everything in your power to keep up your training schedule. And the volume can and probably should come down, that's fine, no arguments there. In a caloric deficit, we don't have as much energy to recover, we don't have as much energy to do our day-to-day activities, let alone train at a high volume. So in a caloric deficit, it makes sense often for the training volume to start to get reduced. That's fine, but make sure you're training, because even a little bit of training can go a long way in maintenance and even in some progress. Although it may be slower progress, there will still be some progress. But The more important reason, and probably the cooler reason why you got to continue to train is because weight training, resistance training, is a super strong stimulant for the body to hold on to muscle. It is very, very protein sparing, meaning that it's very efficient and effective at holding onto or getting your body to hold onto muscle tissue and not losing it. Going along with that, carbs also need to be optimized. Don't just cut carbs out entirely. Carbs have a very strong muscle sparing effect. So yes, you're on a caloric deficit, and yes, that also means that likely your carbs need to be cut down. But make sure you're not just drastically cutting it out or cutting it down so significantly that it's not needed. Try and be on as much calories as possible whilst losing weight. Trying to be on as much carbs as possible while losing weight. You want to be saving your carbs to have them around your training time so that you have energy, because carbs are the body's #1 preferred source of fuel when trying to exercise at a high intensity or trying to perform at a high level or high intensity. I hope that helps out, guys. Stick around for more videos.